Today marks World Adoption Day. This year's observation is held under the theme Child's Right to Family, Adoption the Best Option. The Department of Social Development is commemorating World Adoption Day today in the Northwest with an outreach program that will include interactive discussions with local community members, educate on the adoption process in terms of South Africa's law and services available to support and strengthen adoptive parents, caregivers and families, as well as sharing of personal stories of families brought together by adoption. Well, to tell us more about this day, we are now joined via video link by Acting Chief Director, Child Services, Dr. Tebogo Mabe. Dr. Mabe, thank you so much for your time. There's so many things to consider when we are talking about child adoption. Perhaps let's start with the adoption process in terms of South African law. What are the main steps involved in the process and the length it will take in South Africa?
Thank you so much. Firstly, I would want to make the community aware about the commemoration of this day worldwide. This day, the 9th of November, each year is commemorated as the World Adoption Day. So this year, in partnership, the National Office in partnership with the Provincial Department of Social Development in the Northwest, we have, partnered with each other, and we are here in Vryburg, in Dr. Ruth Segomatsi Mumpati, district, to raise awareness of adoption services. So what we have done, we have mobilized, the community, broad community here, so that we can educate them, about, adoption services. Adoption services entails, the provision of the placement of the child with a family permanently. So as we have rightfully said, this is a process. It starts with, social workers, profiling, screening, preparing the family in terms of, their intention of wanting to adopt the children. And then from there, after thorough investigation, after thorough assessment, and if certain issues or certain processes, for example, checking against the child protection register, the social workers compile report to the magistrate, who will be considering the report. So when the presiding officer or the magistrate is satisfied about the report that has been provided or presented before him or her, the matter will be approved, and the presiding officer will issue out what we call, adoption order.
And so how long, Dr. Mabe, Dr. Mabe, how long will this process take? I mean, of course, you described the interactions with the Department of Social Development. How long will it take for that parent to then finally reach this point where they will be approved to adopt the child?
There are certain time frames that are legislated, that are regulated. The child needs, to be captured in what we call the Register on Adoptable Children for a period of 60 days. And in terms of the children who have been abandoned, investigations need to be conducted, and according to the legislation, it is required that finalization of the matter needs to take place within 90 days. So there are specific kind of pieces of activities attached to the time frames.
And so talk to us about
perhaps it can take about a year in terms of finalizing, if at all the process would be lengthy. But this is regulated. It is not thumbsucked, from the social workers. It is, according to what, the law prescribes, that, certain time frames need to be respected.
Dr. Mabe, I don't have...
if at all...
Dr. Mabe, I want to get through a lot of questions. Unfortunately, time is not going to be on our side. In terms of the eligibility, who is eligible to adopt a child? I do understand there's certain dynamics with families. It might be a complete stranger, but it also might be within the family itself. Just talk to us about who then is eligible to adopt a child. Perhaps also take us through how this differs from foster care.
Yes. Foster care is a temporary placement of a child with an individual. Temporarily, meaning, the child age out when the child reaches the age of 18 years. So adoption is a permanent placement. When one has placed the child with me, when I have adopted that child will remain forever being, Mabe's child, regardless of the age of that child. So in terms of the difference, it is, relating to permanency versus, temporary, time frames.
And who is eligible then in this instance to adopt a child? I mean, a lot of South Africans are really in the gray areas here when it comes to adoption.
Okay. Yeah, a single parent, if at all one is single, that is one category. Married couples are eligible, to can adopt, and people who are in civil union. This is what we call, same-sex, couples. They can, and widowers, the act, prescribes, certain categories of people to say who are eligible, who can, adopt. But basically, everyone, after being screened, found fit and proper, according to the assessment of the social worker, could be eligible, to can adopt, a child.
Are there instances where the consent of the biological parent are not necessarily required?
There are instances where the consent of biological parents are not considered. In cases of abandoned, children who are found, maybe in who have been thrown away, and then the consent, of those parents, are dispensed with, because efforts would have been tried, to locate their parents, and ultimately, if efforts, are fruitless in terms of locating, then abandoned children, would be deemed, for adoption. And then, if at all, there are parents, they need to give consent, and they need to give consent in front of the magistrate in the children's court, and there is a window period that is given, to the parents when, a consent is given is 60 days. So there is a leeway of, giving this parent 60 days, to decide and say, are you sure about, giving out the child for adoption? So if at all, 60 days passes, expires, then, the child is eligible, to be adopted, because according to the we need to observe the 60 days, for the consented, cases.
Unfortunately, Dr. Mabe, your line is not as clear. I would have liked to ask you more questions. Of course, this is a very important topic on discussion in celebration of World Adoption Day. Acting Chief Director for Children's Services there, Dr. Tebogo Mabe.